Welcome back to the Eric Krown crypto channel. Wishing you a happy healthy start to this nice Tuesday morning over here as we prepare for likely another boring day within the overall sideways range on the medium-term timeframes. But on the higher term timeframes where all the action is not going on right now, but likely to come to a culmination, I do expect in these next couple of weeks, probably sooner rather than later within that equation. Now, with that in mind, I should denote that the higher term timeframes are all starting to really coalesce for a major hurricane of tremendous, powerful signals as they all kind of align with each other. So I still suspect that we're waiting as soon as tomorrow. That's going to be Wednesday, not today. Until then, the short term timeframe is kind of the name of the game. And with that in mind, let's just jump right into it right here. So yesterday we were looking at the short-term time frame range. Let me throw my drawing tools right here. And we were looking at 19,450 as a short-term pivot for a warning signal of a short-term reversal coming in. And obviously Bitcoin did close above that. And then we do see that move up to the prior range highs, which is that 19,750 number on, of course, CME that we just hit actually a few minutes ago, in fact. So not bad. Anyways, yesterday, we were also observing a contraction phase about to go on the full hour BWP, and that actually did happen. But here's the thing, that contraction phase didn't come with a continuation of the prior trend that came with a potential higher low in place. So that is an early indication that there may be a bit of a short-term reversal. How would you confirm this reversal? Needs to close back above that 618 pivot right here, which is 19,800 on CME full hour time frame. By the same token, if Bitcoin does come back down and close below that 19,450 pivot, the same pivot from yesterday, then I would be looking at this as, well, a bit of a short-term high, very likely to come back down at somewhere around 19,000 bucks, maybe a little bit lower, kind of the same thing as yesterday, basically. Anywhere, I know it's not that helpful, but anywhere between, the base at like 18,500 bucks to basically 19,000 bucks is fair game, or a little bit below 19,000 bucks. But ultimately, just as before, I would still very much refrain from calling any sort of humongous, tremendous breakdown on Bitcoin just yet, especially based off the lower term timeframes, until we see a daily closure below the same range lows, 18,100, or a tick below last week's wick low, again, specifically on CME, because it actually did make new lows. Spot price action did not. Anyways, let's go reference stochastic momentum to get a bit of a bit of a bias on what the short term is likely to do here, and let's just see what we got. So 6 hour time frame will actually be headed up as long as Bitcoin's above 19,150. It's kind of getting around those critical regions, and of course we do have this trendline regression coming in from the last couple highs, 13th of September, 5th of October, and then more recently right here. 4 hour time frame is also going to be showing technically downside as long as Bitcoin's below 19,700 or so. 3 hour time frame is going to be showing upside above 19,400, and hourly is going to be showing downside below 19,600, which it's technically above right now on CME. So when I see bifurcations like that on the short-term timeframes, there's just no strong, there's no strong bias, if you will, and I just go off of range closures in this case. So let's talk about, or I didn't talk about what to expect if it does close above the top side of the range highs. I only spoke about the bottom side, but if it does close above that 19,800-ish region, essentially the 618, I'd basically be looking for Bitcoin to make a stab back up somewhere around the 0.5, which is basically the early October highs, somewhere just north of 20,000 bucks, maybe around like 20,300 to 20,500, something like that, if you were to see such things happen. But there's not really a strong bias on these timeframes just yet, at least from what I'm looking at. Of course, there's many other ways to do things out there, but I do think that it would be interesting to take a look at Dixie today and see that it is starting to put in at least a consolidation here. Does this lead to an ultimate continuation? Perhaps yes, definitely possible. But short term, I actually would be looking for this to come down a little bit lower, somewhere around $1.11 and like 10 cents or something like that, and then try for a bounce there. Does that ultimately influence, Bitcoin prices or crypto prices? The relationship has certainly been observed by many other people besides myself. So, you can kind of draw conclusions from that, but it's not a one-to-one relationship. It really has to do with like higher term time frame trend. But yeah, that'd be an I guess a point in that direction, I suppose. I don't really feel too strongly about it. I certainly don't feel strongly about any of the shorter term timeframes here. The other thing that I think is somewhat interesting but still unconfirmed would be the daily jewel, which is starting to potentially line up for a pretty damn good signal here, but needs support from DMI, and then also needs to actually turn cyan. If those two things happen, that would be full on confirmation. But for right now, it's potential. Like we have the other two puzzle pieces least in place, just not the most important one, not the most important two, I should say, actually. Anyways, what I wanted to get into now, however, is perhaps what I think is still the most important point of this analysis. And I don't mean to bore anyone who's been on this channel for a while now, but it all comes down to all of the higher term timeframes now coalescing for that humongous, that tremendous, I sound like fucking Trump right now, signal, of which all of the higher term timeframe volatility indicators are starting to really base off at extreme lows. Starting off with the 12-hour right here, which is not a high term time frame, but you can kind of see how they all relate to each other. Extreme lows, what do you know? Daily extreme lows for an extremely long time, I should add. 2-day time frame extreme lows, 5-day time frame extreme lows relative to the full history of Bitcoin. This was like literally one of the lowest levels. And then the weekly, same thing as well. Very interesting right there, isn't it? So I thought that was well, it's certainly worth knowing, because what does that suggest? It suggests that if Bitcoin breaks to either side here, we're looking at a humongous move. We're looking at likely, if it's to the downside, probably 30 to 40%. If it's to the upside, probably a little bit more, honestly, to the upside, maybe around like 40-ish% to maybe even 50. And I suspect that we do start to confirm a signal like this, before end of month, maybe even as soon as tomorrow. I think the beige book numbers, or whatever the fuck they are, I think that they come out. But other than that, as I see that we're about 6.5 minutes into this analysis right now, I did want to point out one last thing while we're on this particular chart. And it does have to do with the weekly RSI, of which the weekly RSI is knocking on the door, or not necessarily knocking on the door for a breakout, but it is starting to morph itself into a falling pizza right here. And while I'm not a big fan of patterns on price action itself, especially the fucking falling pizza, this pattern on the RSI actually is pretty damn good. With that said, though, it's still pretty far away from actually getting there. So I've been seeing a lot of people post about this on social media, and just my sort of 2 cents, not that anyone asked for it, is that it's not like it's relevant, but it's not relevant right now. Like, I don't think that you're going to see something like this, honestly. I don't think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see probably comes back down, sets in a higher low, and then that's usually the one. That's usually how these do happen. Not always, but if we're talking about, if we're talking about what's more likely, something like this is what you typically get, and that also create divergence, obviously, and then, and then you typically get your move. Anyways, I wanted to once again go over here and now reference the daily volatility versus stochastic momentum chart. This is the one chart to rule them all, because I suspect that all of the other higher term timeframes are going to be sort of ignited by this particular time frame as kind of like the first domino, basically. So we observed that the daily, 2-day, 5-day, weekly, basically all are in extremely low volatility environments, which does suggest that we're probably going to see a humongous, tremendous move relatively soon. And in this case, the daily, it probably starts with the daily. And so what is the signal? Well, I've been on this channel for even just like a week now. You're probably bored as fuck of me talking about this, but I do think that it is rather important. And it's this. Starting off with the daily BBWP right here. This represents volatility. It is at extreme lows, which is defined as anything below 10 percentile or more, also been there for quite some time. And basically anytime that we have observed extreme lows on daily BBWP for the full history of CME, going all the way back to the genesis, we've observed an average move of 24.25%, done over the course of about 2.5 weeks or so on average. And the stochastic also has been correct in getting that direction 83.33% of the time. So first and foremost, what would actually confirm the signal that would then make the stochastic direction like relevant would be looking at the daily BBWP here. It needs to, 1, have a positive slope, 2, be above the moving average, and then 3, be above the critical zone. If it has all 3 of those, then it's confirmed. Then we look at the stochastic direction for a high fidelity signal and what direction Bitcoin's likely to move for the next, 25-ish% basically. And in this case, the daily stochastic oscillator, without the volatility component confirmed, by the way, is showing upside above 18,800, which I thought was rather interesting. So is 18,800 around current price action right now? It's about $1,000 below, a little bit less than that. So realistically, it's not super relevant right now, to be fair. But if you were to see, let's say, the short-term time frame range break to the downside, which I would denote as at least a 2-hour time frame below about 19,450, that same pivot from yesterday, actually, then at that point, yeah, you probably actually do see a move somewhere back down around there, or or that would be the first major warning flag that I'd be looking for to kind of ignite that move. And then of course we come back over here and then we reference the actual volatility indicators and whatnot and see if they're lining up with each other. But for right now, it is actually showing upside momentum as long as Bitcoin is above that level. And hey, if you do see Bitcoin actually overtake the short-term time frame topside resistance at 19,800, then I would be looking at that as a good indication that we probably will see this one fall through back above 20,000 bucks and then come back to it tomorrow and see what's up. So I think that's a good place to be leaving off on a video like this. I want to be taking a second to wish you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.